So I'm sure you guys have heard of an event called January 6th. I had a three-part series with a bunch of long lost videos you probably haven't seen before. But if you go to my Rumble page, you can check it out there. Well, there were articles about how Donald Trump incited the January 6th riots and countless calls for the National Guard and things like that. But um, but we got some new information that just came out, and I want to make sure that I get you guys on the up and up. So let's rant. All right, so let's go ahead and start off with this X post from Kylie Jane Kremer. Breaking news: transcripts hidden by the Biden-Harris administration reveal Donald Trump did, in fact, notify the top Pentagon officials on the desire for the National Guard to be deployed on January 6, 2021. General Mark Milley, chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, the president just says, quote, "Hey, look at this. This is going to be a large amount of protests here on January 6th. Make sure that you have sufficient National Guard or soldiers to make sure it is a safe event. Hey, I don't care if you use the Guard soldiers, active duty soldiers, whatever you have to do. Just make sure it's safe." President Trump did nothing wrong on January 6th, she says, as I've been saying the whole time. I did nothing wrong on January 6th as executive director of Women of America First and as the permit holder of Save America rally at the Ellipse at the White House. Yeah, so is there a reason why um, the J6 committee hid this information from the American people?
It couldn't possibly have anything to do with the fact that they stacked the committee with either Democrats or rhinos.
You think?
Couldn't have anything to do with that at all. I'm just saying, like,
Well, if you look at it, like if you go back to my January 6th videos, remember when they were talking about this, when Donald Trump was talking about this, Kash Patel was actually in the room and he stated that he has the transcripts of this. I don't know. They don't know why that wasn't released. I don't know why he didn't have access to those transcripts. But
well, he's no longer a part of the administration. He won't have them.
right, right.
Like, see, in the moment, you don't think to grab your phone or make the requests or do all the things and
Right.
keep records of your own copies. In the moment, you're like, I'm the guy. I'm here and I'm doing this, and there's a certain level of normalcy bias. Even that was one of the things that plagued Trump's administration was normalcy bias. He
Hmm.
didn't know who the scum were. He didn't know who the swamp monsters were until he had to trip over them, or they bit him on the ankle or stabbed him in the back. And the same thing with Cash. Like he had to. It's like he's like, it exists. The stuff exists, but and the commission could get it, but they won't. And so they've stonewalled and stalled and everything, and then we finally get some stuff out. But it's always late. It's always as far down the road as they can possibly kick that can until finally the FOIA requests get answered because someone beat down the door long enough for them to actually give a crap and say, well, fine, we're going to get now. Because there are timelines. And there are certain keywords that you have to put into your FOIA request, or you don't get the information. They just go, sorry, you might have asked for it, but you didn't use the right terms. You didn't use the right search terms. That's like UFOs are now UAPs
Yeah, right. Of all things.
or something like that. They just changed the alphabet soup on you.
Yeah. So what else did you put here? January Sixers and many others involved have been victims of weaponization of the federal government, and all the alphabet agencies needed to completely root it out, started over, and dissolved entirely. Ashley Babbitt, Roseanne Boylan died on January 6th because of negligence of Nancy Pelosi and others. If you don't believe it's negligence of Nancy Pelosi, I got a video to share with you.
We have responsibility,
There it
Terry.
is.
We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean the National Guard. Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient
That
resources.
is not a question of how they have it. They don't know. They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
So just in case anybody decides to have any funny ideas and say, "Oh, this is fake," blah blah blah. Well, now you know. All right, moving on. The last 4 years have been nothing but legal abuse, lies, manipulation, gaslighting, and torture by the left and the MSM against constitutional supporting freedom-loving Americans who use our First Amendment rights to attend legally permitted rally in D.C. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden should be immediately impeached and removed. Kamala Harris is not qualified to be president and is a danger to all Americans. So let's see what we got from the oversight. This is the House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight. So we've got General Mark Milley says on January 3rd, President says, hey, look, there's going to be a large amount of protesters there on January 6th. Make sure you have sufficient National Guard soldiers to make sure it's a safe event. He said, hey, I don't care if you use Guard soldiers, active duty soldiers, whatever you have to do to make it safe. This is from Christopher Miller, Acting Secretary of Defense. The president commented that they were going to need 10,000 troops the following day. I interpret it as a bit of presidential banter or President Trump banter that you are familiar with in no way, shape, or form. I interpret that as an order of direction.
Really? Really?
I cannot believe.
Oh, that's just Trump. That's just Trump. No, it's fine. We don't have to worry about it. It's just Trump. Come on, really? Who's going to buy that?
Oh, you've got
Stop.
to be kidding me. Like, they knew about this. The FBI knew about this. The CIA knew about this. Everybody knew there was going to be a lot of people there. And you're just going to leave your congressional members just with a couple of police officers and whatever you call this? Like, really? Our American government. Anyways, I'm going to move on. So what do we got here? We got Chief Stephen Sund, U.S. Capitol Police. I'm making urgent request to National Guard to overrun and take a quick rundown of what we got going on. The officers out there are fighting for their lives. We're about to be taken over. Let's see. I explained to them and the building was being breached. I need their assistance immediately. It looks like General Pyatt. My recommendation to Secretary of Army is to not support the request. So why not support?
And it even says in there he wants to move. He was like, "We'll just move the National Guard away." It's like not even just not send it. We'll just take it somewhere else.
Just like that.
Kind of like in 9/11, where conveniently all of the fighter squadron that was able to respond to such a thing was conveniently offshore on a training exercise.
Exactly. No.
I'm just. If they want to compare this to 9/11, let's go there. Just say it. I got that one. We got the receipts.
Exactly. All right. So what else we got here? So we've got Commanding Sergeant Major Michael Brooks said they're ready to go and just couldn't understand why they were still sitting there, literally sitting on a bus, just waiting to drive to the Capitol to do the best they could to support Capitol Police. People were like, "Why aren't you there?" We were waiting. Look, this tells me two things. All right. One, this completely exonerates President Trump.
Mm-hmm.
It completely exonerates him. What are they going to do during the January 6th case that they have waiting trial for him? There's nothing. There's nothing they can do now.
Oh, no. There's absolutely nothing. They want to put that on blast? They want to put that on a record?
No, of course they won't. You know, because if you take that and also the video that he sent, it all matches now. You see that?
Plus, Trump, I keep going back to this. Trump stood on a stage for 20 minutes unaware of what was happening at the Capitol because he was finishing his speech. 20 minutes. That's the length of time it takes to walk from where he was standing to the Capitol. It's a
You know what
20-minute walk, and people want to say, "Oh, he riled a bunch of people up, and then they went." That's what most people think. Most people on the street that hate Trump and want to talk trash about January 6th, they think he showed up and rallied an entire group of people, and then they walked. No. There were massive amounts of people at the Capitol already for other things on both sides. In 20 minutes before he was done, that's when Ray Epps and all of his buddies got into it a little bit with whoever the security was. They tore down the barriers and then they walked. And then that's you go look up Revolver and or our earlier episodes is we covered this. Trump stood for 20 minutes. And for those 20 minutes, things already were going on. There was nothing he could have done. He had already sent all the paperwork and all the requests to the mayor, to Nancy Pelosi, and said, I have pre-authorized the National Guard for at your disposal. And then you have that clip we showed a minute ago. Pelosi saying, oh my God, it's all on me. In some, duh. That's the thing is she thinks it's an own, and it's really a self-own, if you know what I'm saying. She's not really owning her responsibility. She's owning herself by exposing herself and her fakeness. The whole thing. There's multiple clips of her and other people where you can tell it's staged and she's all dramatic about the whole thing.
Exactly. Well, if you don't believe us, let's look at the National Guard.
Oh, they have a website?
Yes, they do.
What? It's on the internet.
And they have news articles. DOD details. This is January 8th, 2021. DOD details National Guard response to Capitol attack. Once the reality of the assault on the U.S. Capitol became apparent, National Guard troops responded approximately with what's that? Alacrity? What does that mean? Am I that dumb? Anyways, Department of Defense officials said with phone briefing on January 7th, quote, yesterday was a horrible and shameful day here at the Capitol, in the nation at large. This is Ryan McCarthy, Army Secretary. The District of Columbia asked Army for help, and the National Guard responded. McCarthy Pentagon spokesperson Jonathan Reth Hoffman and Kenneth P. Rapono, the Assistant Secretary of Defense of Homeland Defense, and put up a timeline of the National Guard response's perspective during the call. District of Columbia officials knew of the planned protests and had requested some assistance with the First Amendment demonstrators. Why is that in quotes? First Amendment demonstrators were planned for January 5th and 6th.
Scare quotes.
Yeah, right. McCarthy said, based on this request, officials called upon 340 National Guardsmen to help. The Guardsmen were assigned mainly to traffic control, metro crowd control, some logistics support, and a 40-member quick reaction force to be based at Joint Andrews on Maryland.
Okay, so how 40 people at Andrews? You're familiar with the area.
Mm-hmm.
How far is that from actually being able to? What do they have to go through?
So here's DC, right?
So granted, that bridge is still there. That the Bay Bridge.
Yes.
Would they have to use that, or is it? Or,
they do not have to use
they're
the Bay
closer.
Bridge. So Andrews Air Force Base is just outside of DC on the eastern end. So that corner of DC over here, Andrews is like right there. All right. So Pennsylvania Avenue travels. Whoop, it goes kind of like this. Dun, dun, boom. And that's where it is.
Okay.
If you're traveling by vehicle, and you have a motorcade with you and they block off all the roads, it's about a 12-minute drive from the White House if they block all the roads.
What's 40 National Guardsmen gonna do as a quick response team? Where are they gonna? How are they gonna respond? Are they gonna chopper in, or what?
Come down off of ropes.
Ropes, like are you gonna put 40 National Guard guys with ropes down on the lawn in front of the Capitol or on the Capitol?
That was already breached, by the way.
that was already breached, and there was already people everywhere, people walking like tourists through the middle, literally like tourists, like minding the ropes, other than the lectern guy. That's kind of funny. He did return that. He actually didn't steal that, but he still did time for it because he touched it. Because it's sacred.
He went like this. That's it. Right? But no, but that's what I'm saying. So there's DC, all right, it's like a diamond, kind of
Right.
like this, all right? So then you've got Andrews Air Force Base over here. So that drive is 12 minutes if you have a motorcade. If you don't have a motorcade, and this was at what? This was was it Tuesday or a Wednesday?
I don't remember. I was working that day.
Yeah, I think it was a Wednesday. I drive that area all the time. And usually to get from there into DC itself, just to get to the DC line, it takes about 20 minutes. Yes, this diamond right there from here to there, 20 minutes.
So basically, they used the most minimal amount of National Guard to say that they had something at some point.
Exactly. So at what point do the facts start piling up on top of each other to where, like, what is it that people need to understand that this was all premeditated and set up? Like, what else do you need? Like, what words need to come out of my mouth for you to understand it? Because if it's nothing, then clear. I mean, it can't just be nothing. Nothing is relative, to the conversation because something actually happened. But what words do people need to come out of our mouths, or what information do you need to actually finally say, okay, you know what? Something did happen, and it's possibly not Trump's fault. What is it? Anybody? Let's look in the chat here. Anybody in the chat? Who do we got?
I got a bunch of stuff starred if you just hit the star thing, but that's like I'm collecting these for a point here. We're gonna catch up on some of these as they come in.
Danielle says red tape. Exactly. Who do we got here? It's our boy Fluffy. He said, they only tell the truth when they think they're not being recorded. Touche. All right, what else we got? Oh yeah, I love you, Fluffy.
Look, Mom, I'm on TV.
A little bit. Remember the video of the security saying they were set up? Yes, that's also.
That's on our previous episode of it. Those guys were not happy. They said, "Man, this is BS. We were set up. F this," and that's when they backed out.
Yeah, I know, because
talking about you. Fluffy's talking about you.
Am I that dumb? There's a clip.
There's a clip.
I love this guy. But yeah, like, we literally had to do a three episode series on this because there was so much information that had been released over the last couple of years that we had to piece together. This was no easy feat at all. I mean, I had some information from previous dark shows that I had done before I actually went live, but it was nowhere near the amount of information that I got after the fact. And there was a lot of things that I didn't even know transpired. Like no cops were killed. None of them were killed on the property. Not one.
No, the guy that
not a single one.
Not to continue going on about this because we could, but the only cop that passed away that was involved, that they said was beat to death with a fire extinguisher, guess what? He died of an aneurysm later. That was his cause of death. As an aneurysm or a stroke or something later. Now, the stress of the event could have contributed because, things and stuff, but he wasn't even assaulted. No. So anyway.
Yeah, when you talk about like the fire extinguisher to the head, and like, where did this come from? Like, who who was the one that brought that to light? Was it just the media as a whole? They all got one big white paper that came in and said, "Hey, go ahead and say this." Like now you're seeing how the media operates. You know, it's part of the reason why I do a show like this, because people need to understand that now that all this stuff is coming out, we now know that at minimum, not just the media apparatus told a tall tale, but how many people in Congress hid this information and knew about it?
People in the know on the commission, people that are on committees.
Mhm.
A lot of this stuff, I'm not sure exactly how it works, but there are maybe less than the fingers that I can hold up, Congress and senators that are even worth a dang, and probably even less than that can access that information that is pertinent, which is really, it really sucks. I'm just gonna put it out there. It sucks. Like these guys, we have some good Congress people and a couple of good senators out there, but there's 400 other representatives and senators combined. That how do you fight that? It's just, you know.
Well, it's the good old boys club. Like you have to earn your way in if you're there, and if you're not in there, then you're left out. What did George Carlin say?
It's a big old club, and you ain't
You're
in
not
it.
invited, or you ain't in it. Yep, just like that. But anyways,
And that has been